Well, welcome everyone. We are hoping that with whatever your time zone, that you've come prepared for a kind of an interactive, dynamic conversation around issues still on your mind and in your hearts with respect to the rollout for the 2021 AERA virtual annual meeting. I am Felice Levine, your executive director, if you are a member, and definitely over the course of the 5 days, your executive director, even if you are a non-member coming to the annual meeting, we welcome you. We really see this as a big tent for our research community, and everyone is welcome, whether a repeat player, a new member, or a first timer to an AERA annual meeting. This is surely a different time. It's a virtual meeting, but we've sought in the construction of this platform to create a climate and culture that is welcoming and inclusive for all. We've put a very high emphasis, priority emphasis every year, but have now been reflecting on much more seriously and significantly what that means in terms of access for those with disabilities, both as presenters and attendees, and how we actualize, I suppose I will say, our social responsibility to all in our community, both those who have been a part of it before and those who might experience or hear about it and come to what we hope will be or intend will be our place-based 2022 annual meeting in San Diego just about a year from now. But we will not jump forward to 2022. This was billed as an open conversation, what you still want to know. I'm joined by Robert Smith, I hope, our director of all things meetings, including this mega one, the annual meeting. He is not, I can assure you, in San Francisco. We will be relocating just a skeletal staff. So Robert and I are one floor apart. I am at the AERA headquarters in Washington, D.C. on the 12th floor, and Robert is on the 11th floor, and we will kind of scatter some staff around to ensure that as the meeting unfolds starting on Thursday the 8th, that in every way you are supported with a huge amount of live functionality. I hope that those of you who've joined us today are coming because you've got lots of things on your mind, because we're not going to tell you much more, but just a few things. And then Robert and I will open it up for questions. I do want to mention that Nanette is doing live closed captioning. And so if you move to the right of the Zoom delivery system that you see here or read here, you will be able to have the readable text live. I suppose there's just a couple of things that I'll mention, and Robert might know the facts more at his fingertips than I might remember them all. But you will be receiving, if you are registered, you will be receiving your password and welcoming sometime Eastern time in and around 6 p.m. Eastern Savings Time. So whatever your time zone, expect it tonight or this evening in East Coast time. And of course, it's will be Saturday morning, for example, in Hong Kong and other places where we have many active collaborators, participants, and attendees. You'll be able to go into the platform and look at your contact sheet by going to my office and deciding what else you might want to fill in or not fill in. You'll be able to I don't want to say you'll be able to cruise around in this virtual platform. The most important thing to remember is it's one-stop sign-in. No, nothing downloaded on your computer, whether you're presenting or attending, you won't have to navigate in the other kinds of platforms that are not a one-stop shopping. You won't have to navigate saving or remembering in your calendar. You will be able to create, although not as soon as today, because the schedule is still being, a crosswalk is still being tested between the AERA online program and the program that will be in the platform. But if you have been to an AERA annual meeting before, it will operate just as the introduction of the app, except instead of having the app on your laptop like that, or on your iPad or on your cell phone, you'll have the app at every page and every piece of the platform, and you can create your own schedule. If you don't like your own schedule after you've created it, you can delete it and change parts of it, or you can just go to my schedule. And my schedule today is very much about you. Nathan, if you would pull up the agenda for a moment, I will be sure that what I've tried to capture in a few short words of welcome and the purpose. And so while there are probably approximately a little over 100 of you who've joined us for this collective happening, is the best way to put it, that you can post Q&A. We will try to respond with staff that are monitoring the Q&A within Q&A, but we're also going to try to extrapolate salient questions or raise with you salient questions that that everybody would be interested in knowing the answer. But we're also suggesting you raise your hand. And I think it would be certainly would be a lot of fun for us. I'll tell you that in the many orientations, we had, such large turnouts for very specifically oriented issues, those oriented to presenters and chairs, or to the interactive presentation gallery, and the very specific kinds of functionalities there. We, might have had over or close to 1,000, and raise your hand can't work so well. But we would like you to be part of this community, because your voice will help us find our voices, to the extent that there are other ways that we need to be reflective and responsive. One of the key issues for being reflective and responsive is that many presenters, as much as we've had sessions and the videos are up on the AERA website, and we had fact sheets that are now being even further polished and refined as we've heard from you, and as the platform has been further refined. Next week, starting on Tuesday the 6th, and Robert, do you have that screen to share?
I have some details that I can share, sure.
Okay. I think it's the 6th, 7th, 8th. There are many. You will be able to enter the platform, and as a presenter, do what we've been saying is user-friendly and easily extrapolated from experiences you've had, how presenters will share their screen if they choose to do so, and whether that sharing of screens is PowerPoints or old style transparencies, or whether you've done, and we still encourage you to do an interactive presentation that will sit in the interactive presentation gallery, but you'll be able to bring that up as shared screen in a tab that you'll essentially open just as you would open any website tab, or forget to close them. So there'll be an opportunity with a lot of staffing from the Scarrett Company, who's the innovative platform that we've engaged for our meeting. Those run
So they'll be on April 6th at 11 a.m., 1 p.m., and 5 p.m.
All
And then
Eastern, right, Robert? All Eastern times.
all Eastern time, right? And then again on April 7th at 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. with an additional session at 4:30. And they'll go through the differences between the presentation modes at that time. It's within the platform, so we encourage you to attend one of those training sessions so you get an opportunity to see exactly what it's like to share your screen, be a presenter, and what the experience is going to be like for you during your presentation.
The vast majority, though not all, hardly all, because people come to the meeting to learn and to engage in social networking and a range of other meetings. And sometimes you've just completed a big project and you're not ready for your next presentations. But for those presenting, those sessions are designed for those who will be presenting their work, whether in a symposia, a paper session, a roundtable, or a poster session with the emphasis on shared screen. We encourage your attending, not because this isn't intuitive and translatable from all you have been undoubtedly doing for at least a year, if not in other contexts, well over a year. But it will definitely reduce any concerns you might have about, oh my, this is really something we haven't encountered before, to we can embrace this with a high level of comfort if you kind of test it out. And we got lots of requests to test it out on the platform. And we're pleased that we've been able to schedule these opportunities where you will literally be able to test it out. Just as this past Monday, a member of our research community who had done an eye presentation with two of her papers in the from the 2020 meeting, and has now been doing it with two of her papers from the 2021 meeting. She did a live demonstration on Monday. That video is available on our website, and that's a nice little window on how you do it, in addition to the 3 other videos on that topic. We have several thousand who have opted to create an eye presentation in the gallery, but many of you have not yet begun. So if you've not yet begun and you need some help, go back to the Monday video or email the email box, which is presentation-gallery@aera.net.
Correct.
And we will be there for you. We're eager for you to benefit from this asset, though it's an option. It's an option that you will be quite satisfied with having opted for it if you choose to do so. I also want to mention, and then we're just going to open it up, that that all of the paper sessions, the roundtables, and the poster sessions, as I've said previously, but I want to reaffirm that all of those sessions have as the default using AI, thus not live person, closed captioning. All of the other sessions, symposia that were competitively selected, sessions that were competitively selected, invited sessions, speakers, plenaries, all of those will have ASL interpreters and live closed captioning, and will be recorded in that motif. The others will be recorded with the AI, essentially machine readable. We've tested it. It looks pretty good, but it may not meet everyone's need. If you are a presenter in a session or in a paper session, a roundtable, or a poster session, and that does not seem like it will meet your need, we have a specially dedicated email box, access@aera.net, for any special requests that presenters may have or attendees. So as you've designed your schedule, or if you find day one that AI isn't, for those sessions, isn't meeting your need, we have additional ASL and closed captioners who can, live closed captioners who can offer one or the other. Give us as much notice as you can, because there's been a staffing plan for all of the other sessions, which you can imagine is a huge number of sessions that you'll all be attending, including the business meetings, and the receptions will have live closed captioning and ASL. So I just wanted to mention both of those services. We also have our Ombuds program that was introduced for the first time in Toronto, and would have been continued, as Robert is sitting in San Francisco, would have been continued in our San Francisco meeting, is an independent service for those who just want to reflect on anything that is causing them pause, or they want to check out, or they have some concerns that it is at the point where you want to seek that advice or share your reflections, and it isn't the kind of complaint that you've determined you just want to, whether it's of an ethics variety or any other, that you want to bring immediately to the association. There'll be material on both, but I just want those who knew about the Ombuds program, knew about our increasing emphasis on everyone collectively being reflective about the climate and culture that we're creating together, whether that was in the New York meeting or the San Antonio meeting, and ramping up with the Ombuds program in the Toronto meeting. There will be a virtual Ombuds program, and the two persons who were our Ombuds participants or colleagues who led the Ombuds program in 2019 will be with us. On this virtual platform. So with that, Robert, you have other things you want to add, or shall we just open it? Whatever your preference.
I think we should just open it.
Okay. So please raise your hands. One is only. Use the raise your hand function. I would say that I want you to know that live chat among you is not operative. Chat can be posted to the panelists. That's which we learn. One of the many important things we've learned through our ramped up attention to accessibility is that the chat function can be can interfere with accessibility functions, both for those with disabilities and really others as well, so that what makes sense for some really makes sense for all. And so that chat function is only to the panel. If you have Q&A, you can put it in Q&A. If you've got some overall thing that would be tantamount to a more global comment or issue or reflection, just put it in Q&A and we'll sort through it in any way that we need to do so. So with that, let's open it for a community conversation. Let's envision we can all see each other, and it's a town hall meeting opportunity. Tony or Laurie?
Hi, Felicia. A few people are asking about how roundtable sessions will be handled in the platform, as well as poster sessions.
Okay.
Meaning, what will they look like? How long will people have to present? That
Okay.
sort of thing.
All right, we're going to repost fact sheets there. This is among the quote unquote most frequently asked questions. The only difference between this and, I don't know, Robert, if you can find the rooms just to give people, we've tried to design these spaces so that they kind of cue, at least visually for those who are more visual, what those spaces look like, to give you a feel that when you're in a networking space, that's going to look much more like going and sitting outside. Actually, it looks like you're going and sitting outside at a beach. So that wasn't exactly, well, it's a little close to, I guess it could have been close to Orlando, but that's not exactly beachfront. But at least would have been warm. So it's the most frequently asked question. So I want to say what it is really is what it is always for the AERA annual meeting. So I'm going to describe them. I'm going to respond to the question of how much time you have and what it's like. But the only difference, there are obviously, we're in virtual space, so no one is place-based, and you are face-to-face, but no one is together in a room. The most important difference otherwise for a roundtable and a poster session is that those are only 1 hour instead of an hour and a half. And the reason why those are only 1 hour versus an hour and a half is we've wondered whether it would even place-based, whether it would be better to have fewer concurrent tables in a big ballroom and fewer posters in a big ballroom, and where attendees walk in and kind of don't know exactly where they want to go first, and essentially have less concurrence, because typically the interaction in a poster session or roundtable are like sort of the dynamics in a roundtable of a seminar, and in a poster session, it is closer, it is more proximal to a one-on-one. So now I'll go through the three motifs. Everyone with an accepted paper, those papers have equal status, were blind peer reviewed, and from AERA's point of view, if you've chosen, and you'll have another opportunity to choose it, to decide on doing so after the annual meeting, if you put your paper in the AERA paper repository as a paper with a version along the way around your work, you will receive a DOI as you might in any other working paper series. This work is still your intellectual work and product. It is not AERA's. And you will have a DOI. If you choose to create an interactive presentation, you will also have a unique site, and that gallery will be available for people to contact you all year long. It also has the functionality of your being able to schedule or have others asked to schedule video chats. You'll be able to receive written communication. You'll be able to post additional information. But this is how the presentations unfold. So the reason why I emphasize that is that certainly in years gone by, and I've been your executive director since 2003, there was a sense that there was an implicit bias and status hierarchy, and that somehow giving a paper in a paper session had more value than in those days doing a round table and sitting alone at a table hoping someone would come to the table, or a poster that tended to have more people kind of milling around. A paper is accepted or declined, I suppose, as more warm than rejected, 45% of you are in a competitive group if you've had a paper accepted through blind peer review, through our panels. We ask authors to identify what your preferred mode of presentation, given the nature of your work at that stage, is. And those submitting papers have their papers reviewed identically, and they've chosen to be in paper sessions, roundtables, or poster sessions. Each is equally meritorious from the vantage of AERA and from the vantage of the letters we write to your departments or wherever else you might reside. You've had an accepted paper. So now, a paper session, and we emphasized this starting in 2010 because that was one of the most significant concerns, that the paper sessions were actually often less interesting. Sometimes the discussant went off and pontificated and didn't have much to say at all that was useful. So having a discussant is an elective part of the organizer creating a paper session. That those paper sessions, the organizers for the program co-chairs and the committee seek to organize them much more around topics so that they bear some relationship to each other. In a paper session, there's a chair. There are 3 to 5 papers. Some of them may be multi-authored. If you haven't registered yet and you're a presenting author, you need to do so. We said that to you 2 weeks ago, and it's actually serious. You can't get into the platform and you can't get into a presentation, which by rule of council is true place-based, and to be reinforced in San Diego, you must register to be listed as a presenting author. If you don't register quite soon, we're going to have to eliminate you as a presenting author, and we're not going to deny you authorship. You'll be an author. You won't be a presenting author. And obviously there needs to be at least one presenting author. If there are multiple authors, you essentially are allocated the typical allocation, and sometimes that's shaved a bit, whether there's 5 papers or 3 papers. The typical guideline is 8 to 10 minutes. The chair is the moderator, the facilitator, will introduce the session and introduce you. And typically then the chair actually is encouraged to communicate with you. Nothing new about that. Currently only ARA gives access to the papers. The abstracts are available, but to each of your papers, to chairs and discussants if there is a chair and discussant. Definitely a chair, but if there is a discussant. I encourage you to share your papers with each other. There is everything to be gained in terms of having any kind of meaningful crosstalk at the end of that conversation than by somehow only having your abstracts available to each other. But the chair will introduce the session. He will be calling upon each presenter, essentially each paper, and the presenting author. If there is more than one presenting author, you can split your time. If you are, if it is a session where one presenter or both presenters wish to speak in alternative languages, that is fine, as long as half of the time the presentation is in English. That's true in creating an iPresentation as well. Typically the paper presenters unfold in that way. Now, if you said there were 5 and each took 10 minutes, so you're kind of taking 50 minutes, the chair might have asked you in advance, or wisdom might prevail on each of your parts to see this as on the 8-minute side of 10 minutes and not the 12-minute side. The chair is going to really encourage and be very prompt about encouraging you to wind up so that it's no more than 10 minutes. Sometimes the chair might entertain questions in between. More typically, if there's a if there's a discussant raising issues, those issues might be to particular paper presenters or might be more holistic, and Q&A unfolds. Your experience will be much like being, we're now in a webinar mode. It will be essentially, if you know WebEx or you know Zoom, this is Zoom, so you know it already. It's essentially going to, your experience will be with respect to the audience as if you are in a meeting mode. The chair will ask all of the audience to turn off their mics so that the first part is the more formal presentation, and then we'll call on people through raise hand or through looking at Q&A. Now, the roundtable is, and that's an hour and a half. The roundtables, as I said, and the posters this year, and undoubtedly moving forward, because we think there's something to be said for it, of having fewer concurrents and more opportunity to have more meaningful engagement. In a place-based meeting, we know there's a round table. People cluster around who are interested in this topic, the attendees, but this is not. We certainly know there are many departures from that, but these are not opportunities. They're not intended to be opportunities to essentially shoehorn a paper presentation session into a roundtable. These were designed for people who are at the point of their research where they want to have a conversation. And so that conversation is for, I think, also 3 to 5 max of work that was accepted as papers where authors have opted to be in a discussion group, more of a seminar mode than, I don't want to say a lecture mode, but then a lecture mode, so that there's no comment, there's no discussant at all. The chair will introduce it, and say, okay, this is around this topic. These papers kind of are all oriented to some of these common issues. And when you're preparing for this, and this was true since 2010, when we reorganized into these conversation groups. So it's as true virtually as it was then, that it's an opportunity for each person who's together. Imagine kind of going to a dinner party where you don't know anybody, and people might go around the table and say what they're, kind of, in this case, it would be what your paper is about rather than, who you are. But you would say, well, I've been doing this work. The paper that was accepted for AERA is essentially about this. You might even want to say, well, I've struggled with whether this was the best methodological approach. I'm really thinking in future work. Whatever you want to share, you might want to share what the essence of your results are, and think about it as your elevator. We talk about the elevator speech. AERA has, since 2016, talked about the briefer ed talks, or kind of in the rest of the world, we love our ed talks better than we love the TED Talks, because they usually are not one-way communications with a lot of faz-baz, but used for these opportunities of getting a group together. And then a conversation unfolds among you around the things that you decided to bring to the table. It may be some you're concerned about, whether you've done, case studies in 3 sites and you're thinking of altering some of the parameters to do a case study in another site, but you're not so sure it makes sense in light of your findings, or whatever you'd like to discuss that would give voice to the common issues that bring you together. It's a good way to get some advice, talk about what you've learned and what you have found. It typically is a way of presenting your paper, but I'm just saying, what do I want to say? I want to say that the opportunity is your oyster to kind of bring to the table what you might like. And that image of the table, and Robert, you've got the table?
The instance is down, and I do not have an image of it.
Okay, look through that PowerPoint. Maybe at some point we could show the PowerPoint of
Right.
what the round table looks like, and essentially the small theater style that you would typically have seen in a paper session, and essentially what a poster room is going to look like or feel like. The attendee, and many of you we hope will be attendees, the attendee at attendees of other sessions. Indeed, this platform, if I can put it to you, this platform is, come on, when your day begins, whatever, or your night begins, do what shop around, do the networking, go to sessions that you haven't experienced before. Don't just view it as an opportunity, which we know happens with the non-kind of environment meetings, as just doing your session and leaving and thinking that's what an annual meeting is about. You really will be kind of, I think, undermining your own sense of experiencing something that will be not identical to face-based, but pretty face-to-face, even though not place-based. So if you're attending a focus group, you'll have plenty of time to kind of join that conversation. If you see a topic that interests you, you're essentially, kind of pulling up your chair, as would happen in a place-based meeting. There are chairs surrounding the round table, and you will be joining in, and you can, you will just raise your hand, or if there's, and you'll be called upon by the chair to say, well, it seems like you've got an interest in contributing to this conversation. So the conversation enlarges, and how wonderful that is for all of you. I only wish I could go to more than I can, because it's an opportunity of not only sharing your work, but also expanding, your ideas and your network. In the virtual meeting, well, in a place-based meeting, we know that persons sometimes have a handout. It might be a graph or a chart. Maybe it's a couple of powerful quotes from a focus group you did. We know that sometimes people have picked up their iPad and shown some things, handout, iPad. It's not a formal presentation. It's things, what would you say? It's kind of an artifact that you want to show. In this mode, you will have shared screen in a way you don't have in a place-based meeting, because you're not at a table in a big ballroom. We encourage you to share screen and show what I'm going to say are those artifacts, a visual, or what, if you decide to do that. Some just decide to talk, but don't use this as I would advise you. You could, who's going to know, except your other colleagues around the table who might have thought they were going to have a conversation. Don't kind of use this as an opportunity to give your paper that you might have given in a paper session. If you feel forlorn that this is a discussion and you don't like discussions, then next time when you're submitting for 2022, don't pick roundtable and just say you want to be in a paper session or a poster session, or vice versa among those. Part of why we introduced these roundtables is we got a lot of feedback about paper sessions where people felt they were accepted. I've already given you some of the concern and critique about some discussants, which I think doesn't happen any longer, but that they were clustered with papers that bore no relationship to each other, and everybody had their 10 minutes under the sun. And so we introduced this change in roundtables in 2010 to add to the culture and climate and collaboration of the meeting. So now we'll move to poster sessions. Poster sessions, if you've been to one at our meeting or any other meeting, it's a big ballroom. It's flat and one-dimensional. You either go to Kinko's and run it off when you get to whatever or some other, this isn't a paid ad for, I suppose Kinko's is now Federal Express or some other mega company, but you're doing a poster, you've got the text, it's one-dimensional. These, ideally one has done it in a way that is accessible and not too dense in words or not too opaque in pictures, a good balance of trying to capture your work, but it's somewhat, but it is one-dimensional. Actually, so is showing a PowerPoint one-dimensional, although you could, connect to a URL. It's not a web-based product. Someone in a poster session or a roundtable or a paper session can decide not to use, although again, we encourage the use of what is this great web-based product, and make an iPresentation. You could even throw part of your PowerPoint in them if you wanted to stop along the way and do that. So someone doing a poster session, we hope all of you will create an interactive presentation. But whatever you've chosen to do at the beginning of your session, and you will arrive 10 minutes early, everybody's going to be encouraged to arrive 10 minutes early. If you are if you're presenting or if you're chairing. In this case, there's no chair. And in a place-based meeting, if you imagine all those posters around the room, this one is, these are vertical, but imagine it horizontal. You kind of have, I'm going to just like throw it out there, 3 feet by 5 feet. That's your real estate. I kind of made that up, but you've got your poster on a board standing, and you've got I think typically a table. I'm not sure if we give you a chair, and people walk around. You might have people early in the roaming who walk around to see yours. You may not see anybody for 10 minutes other than the person across the way with a poster who may or may not have a visitor. So during that hour in the poster session motif, people will join you, or attendees will join you at different points in time. You may have 1 or 2 right at the beginning. There may be a time where after 10 minutes or so, just as they might walk away from your poster, if you were place-based, they might hop to another poster or maybe even another round table. Someone else might pop in. When you're place-based with a poster, you obviously don't start talking until someone's come up to you. When someone's come up to you, they may want to first look at your display. With an iPresentation, you will be able to bring up from the gallery your display so that all of your panels are visually available. If you choose to use PowerPoint instead, you can't show all your slides, I guess, unless you make PDFs and somehow then make a picture. But so that's one advantage for all of this. But in an iPoster, you'll be able to, in a poster session, you'll be able to bring up your presentation, and you should right away, whatever that is, even if it's an opening slide in PowerPoint. And when someone comes up, you might say to them, you're gonna, this is a kind of a time for ingenuity. And it always is in a poster session. If no one's there, don't be discouraged, particularly if you're in the gallery, because they might have visited you before. They might send you a message, or they will see your work later, and then they might send a message, and then you can set up another time to see, to get together with people live after your live session through the platform. But when you see your first couple of people, you might say, well, I'm happy to introduce what my work's about. If you've done an iPresentation, then you might say, you might want to scan what my work's about, and then I'm happy to give you an overview or answer any questions you might have. You'll kind of get that rhythm, particularly if you've done a place-based poster session, but you obviously aren't going to start talking until you've got some visitor attendees. You will know when you have a visitor attendee because they're going to come in live. You're going to know if they'll have the capacity to have their video up if they choose to. You'll know their names. You'll know when the first person walks in, and you'll know if you're talking to 2 or 3 people and someone else joins or 3 others join. You will want to then take the appropriate moment, just as you would if you were place-based, and say, well, let me just finish up the points that I'm making to these 2 colleagues, and then I really would love to overview my work for you, and show you, you know, my presentation or any parts of it that you might like to see. So I don't know. I guess I'd say I'd love to know through some function, maybe a hand clap, whether at least those who ask the question, and we get this question a lot, feel well served. Those giving papers in sessions, in symposia submissions, they will have the share screen function, and that is more equivalent to a paper session in how you will present. But symposia tend to be proposed with additional intended overarching purposes. So the presentations can even be far shorter. For example, if it's an open forum, it might be that the chair has informed you, or it says so in the submission, you know, that those of you on that are just going to give initial remarks of 3 to 5 minutes, or there'll be a focal speaker, and then there's commentators, or there might be a debate, or it might be a town hall meeting. Those could look more like paper sessions, but they tend to be, I don't want to say less stylized, but a little less stylized, and they tend to be more organic depending upon what that session submission looked like. You were all part of a session submission. So if you don't actually recall, go back and read that session submission, and again, make sure the chair and you all are in touch. I want to emphasize that usually in touch would mean that for many sessions, whether they're paper sessions or roundtables, you'd all be communicating with each other. Maybe there'd be a conference call. One of the beauties of being in this platform is that if you're presenting on the 10th and you've heard from no one, you can send a message through the platform and schedule a meeting. You can send a group message to the 6 people on your session and say, you know, guys, we haven't communicated yet, and this thing's tomorrow. Maybe we want to get together, and, you know, one of you propose a time. So if you find that nothing's happened by Wednesday the 7th, once you're into the platform, you can communicate and set up your own time. And it's essentially like going to the bar or going to a breakfast. Pick your time and get together and coordinate how you want to do this. And we highly recommend it. I also highly recommend that you not privatize this wonderful work that you're giving at a public meeting, and that you share it with, if you're giving a what we call a commentary paper, and that you've obviously prepared a commentary paper, don't just have the chair or the commentators see it, share it with the others who are part of your group, so that, especially in a cross-cutting conversation, you all know where you're coming from. Tony?
Felice, a number of people have asked, when will they be able to access the virtual platform? And then how will they be able to sign up for the training sessions on the 6th and 7th?
I'll do the first. You're going to get this invitation sometime circa 6 p.m. East Coast savings time, so current time in the East Coast. If you're on some other time zone, far and wide, just go into a time clock and it'll make the conversion for you. Actually, when you're in the platform, it's going to tell you the time in your time, not East Coast United States time. So you'll get that password. You'll be able to go in and experience it now, and I'd say, and then come back Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, because other things will be open. But like going to an annual meeting, you know, you come 2 or 3 days before, and we have pre-day workshops. You know, the exhibits aren't open yet. So the exhibits are going to open when exhibits typically open, which is, well, actually, we're opening them a day before. We typically open them the morning of day 2, but this year we're going to be opening the exhibits, and we've got some wonderful exhibitors, I think in and around 40. Go to the exhibit space. That's not just seeing flat information. We have those exhibitors staffing live, who you'll be able to meet with and see, whether it's about a book idea you have, a textbook adoption, a question you have about manuscript submission, or whatever you want. You'll be able to see any number of exhibitors, not just publishers by any means, any number of research institutions and organizations, some data sets, at least one SIG and one ARA division. And I think there's a sign up of up to 100 for.
That's correct. So you'll receive your login information this afternoon, and once you log into the platform, you'll land in our lobby, and I'm just going to share our screen for 1 minute, and let me pull that up. And it will look like this. Now, this is a bit of a hard hat tour, if you will. There's still a little bit under construction, but you'll come to, on those days, the 6th and the 7th, you'll come to this link that says upcoming events, and it will be listed here. And you'll just, instead of add, there'll be a little circle that says, that'll allow you to go to the event. Just click on that, and you'll be taken into the event, and it'll be a live tutorial on how to share your screen, how to use the system.
So
we also have some videos of that that are posted to our website in our Facts at a Glance at the within the annual meeting platform for this year.
I think that, so the answer, and I'm glad, Robert, you pulled that screen up because it reminded me, this isn't like the other orientations and training we did or this one where at least a minute before you needed to sign up so you would have the Zoom. You are actually going to experience as an attendee going, pulling down the schedule and then going to it, and that's all there is. You don't have to, there's no saving of Zoom. I think there's an effort to try to limit each to about 100, and that's why Scarrett is kind of monitoring turnout, because we could have 13,000 attendees, although not necessarily 13,000 presenters, but we want to make sure that they're going to monitor it, and if they need to add some, they'll add some. So it's essentially going in and landing there. That's it. And that'll give you a good feel of how wonderful this is. Tony? Lori? Nathan? And please.
Someone asked how, if during a live session someone experiences technical challenges, how do they seek help?
So on again, let me share my screen. On every page, you'll find this little these two icons. One's a help icon, the other is this orange dot. You can press on that, and Scarrett technical staff will be there to help you.
Will that open, Robert, right now?
It is not.
Okay, so there are three. You'll see three things. You'll see a chair, you'll see presenter, and you'll see there it is, and you'll see attendee. So you hit the one that's appropriate to why you're there, and then you explain what your problem is. And these are being heavily staffed and monitored through the platform. That's another very important reason why ARA invested in giving you a platform other than us just buying mega licenses through products like Zoom. This is support through this platform and monitoring any kind of issue, including if you have concerns about anything going on, anything unwelcoming or seemingly off-putting, you'll be able to chat that in private space, and lo and behold, you'll be contacting probably me. I'm the ARA ethics officer, or Robert or Lori Diane Hill, who's with us today, our associate executive director.
So a question, I'm gonna just jump in. A question did just come up about your schedule in the all academic system and the schedule that you can build for yourself here. They do not sync up. So you'll want to select your sessions and they'll be posted and you can add them to your schedule here. But it won't port over from all academic. There's no way for those two systems to talk to each other that way.
Yeah, the thing I want to emphasize, which is, of course, we would love everything to sync up, and it's been pretty monumental how much is syncing up. But I want to say that for others who've been to ARA meetings since we introduced the app, I think in 2012, there was no alignment between what you might have created in the ARA or the all academic schedule and creating your own schedule in the app. You needed to do it. It's a really good thing to invent and think about. There's no doubt that would be really nice because the online program opens on, well, this year, February 15th. And if everyone submits their work and reviews it in a timely way for 2022, we're aiming to do that on January 15th. It would be wonderful to have that, but to work that through as a new product is something that may or may not be available as soon as 2022. So I'm seeing a really good question here. I'm sure there are many good questions, so not to diminish anyone, but this is from someone who has done narrative recordings in an interactive presentation that they have created. And so the question is, what do you do with this this recording when you're showing it? And this would be true whether you've chosen to do an interactive presentation in a poster session, a roundtable, a paper session, or with your paper in a symposium. In the live session, which we are offering every session live, there's no substitute from hearing the words from you. So your overall, you don't have to play your overall narration in that session. You're going to be saying what you wish to say, even though it might be in and around the same time, 3 or 4, minutes of that. But there's no reason to play it because you're there, and there's no way to play it if you're not there, meaning if for some reason you didn't register and you're a sole author, that paper just will not be presented live unless you register. It would be removed from the gallery because it wasn't presented at the annual meeting. But there could be something, and there often is, something that's a narration in one of the panels that you want attendees to hear. If you're doing it in a poster presentation, you might say, well, you've looked at my presentation and you see that I'm role playing one of you, that I did these in-depth interviews with school dropouts and trying to understand the complexities of the social context in which they live and how they understand what led them to leave, or at least leave their schooling. And with their permission, I have some recordings in my presentation that I will not show you the visual because I've said it would only be the sound recording as part of my agreement with them. I want to play 1 or 2. You might want to do that in a poster session, a paper session, or a roundtable, just as an example, I said for the roundtable, or in a symposium, and then through the presentation, you'll be able to do that in whatever panel it existed. The one you won't want to do is there's no substitute for your own conversation in a poster session or a roundtable or a paper session. The reason why we're encouraging the overall narration is that it's a wonderful way of your conveying what your work's about overall for those who go to the gallery at any other time during the meeting and see your work, and then can hear, at that point, hear your voice. But after the annual meeting, we are going to transcribe all of those audios of the overall narration so that those who are prefer the reading mode or for their own personal capacities prefer to do the reading or can only do the reading versus the hearing. That screen where it says narration, there will be a written narration option and an oral narration option or a voice narration option. You don't need to worry about the written option. ARA, I'd like to say, actually, I'm very proud of us doing this. So I'm going to say on our collective dollar, meaning, we're a membership association. We live by our collective commitment to our field together. We are going to transcribe them. And those will be, after the annual meeting, your interactive presentation will, is available, just like the 2020 authors who experimented with that. So in your presentation mode, you will, there's no real reason you're there to use the live presentation, the live narration. If for some reason you're doing an interactive presentation for any paper at all, and we'll play that in a minute, Robert. If for some reason you are doing an interactive presentation of your paper and wherever you're presenting it, you don't want to take the time right now to do the overall narration, despite the advantages I've just said, and probably it may even be easier to do all at once. But if you were me, I would wait myself. I've got like too much on my menu right now, and I bet many of you feel the same way. So I would go back and, do that over interactive narration, and you can actually do that during the meeting, because you can republish and add that after your live presentation. And we just like with the online paper repository, we give you a period to do your any further revision of your paper that you might like, and then it goes into the repository. Maybe we say you have, I don't know what our deadline might be this year, but let's say we say until May 25th. The same thing with this. You'll be able to similarly do things like your overall narration, or maybe add a narration to a slide, or add some pictures, or clean up something you've seen. Oh my gosh, there's a typo for you. That's invariably the case. The one thing why we're encouraging you to post your interactive presentation and go live, which is called publishing, but it's really only posting. These are still your works, and you'll have a unique citation to it. We're encouraging you to do it as soon as you can. And I think there's a deadline. I don't know. We may have changed it from the 5th to the 7th. But the Amuse inventors of this product, they're going to be taking a look at things. Like, for example, we saw a few that were published that are still blank. And so we don't know whether they're still in the creation mode or they hit publish by accident. And so we'll be able to contact them and say, well, you've posted it, but go back. Once you correct, unlike using whiteout in the old days and having to retype over something, this is instantaneous. You make the correction, you republish, and whatever you've done is there. So we hope you'll use it. Robert, just a brief piece from that, from the overall narration.
Welcome to Social Justice and Equity as Research Education, Applied Critical Leadership in the Mixteco Indígena Community. My name is Lori Santamaria, and I'm the Director and Principal Investigator for the Mixteco Indígena Community Organizing Project, otherwise known as MICOP, coming to you from Oxnard, California, United States of America.
All right, so let's end that. And so that's an opportunity for the overall narration. That is what we will also transcribe after the meeting. But if you're showing something, and the question was directed to what if I'm showing it in a poster session, but it doesn't matter whether it's a poster session, a little clip you might want to show in a paper session as you're presenting your presentation. You won't do your overall narration, but if in your if you decide to use the interactive presentation and you want to play a little clip to make a point that I just was saying with school dropouts, would you, Robert, within one of the panels, I think that Laurie Santa Maria, our faculty leader for last Monday's workshop, she's already, I think that's her 2021. Is that, no? Or maybe,
Yes.
okay, do you want to just play that piece of narration that's within a panel?
Oh,
When you present, you will do. I mean, you will do if that's part of the presentation that you've chosen to do. Usually you will, you know, you don't want to bury people with slides, but of course you can. And then only use for your presentation.
He does, on her particular poster, she has an embedded video, which you will see, but she does not have a additional embedded narration as yet. But you can, if you were to click out, you could have narration of this particular set of your data. So very interactive and
why don't you just show the video if you can for a second, or whatever it was. You can embed almost anything, animation, and I'm just saying that if you want to make that part of your presentation, you can, and you can play it during your presentation. The thing that would seem a little bit odd is to, I mean, it wouldn't make sense to play the overall narration live.
Proyecto Mixteco Indígena en colaboración con la organización de los primeros 5.
I'm not seeing it. Maybe I'm missing it. In the are you doing shared screen?
Yes,
Okay. Well, I may just be in the wrong mode. Okay, no, there it is. Yeah. So that would be one of your panels.
You can watch it in a small version, or you can blow it up and.
Now that's the way the presenter will display it, either a big version or a small version. As an attendee, you can't do that in the live session, but you can go to the gallery and you'll have total control of how you see it.
En dar apoyo.
So
that's how that works. So I would say, in answer to the question I read, in your scheduled time for the live presentation, there really is no reason to use, and you wouldn't want to use, your overall narration. Any of you who have embedded anything in the presentation itself in one of the panels, you probably did that because you might want to display it during your, well, it could be, well, during your paper presentation or in the poster. If someone walks up and you're talking about that point, then you would say, well, let me show you what this interview really got to the heart of the matter. If you're in a roundtable, you'll only be doing it as any of the panels to make some very specific kind of point, as you might in a handout. It might come up in the discussion. Oh, well, yes, I did interviews like that too. Or I used state longitudinal administrative data. Let me show you my table. And then you would just cherry pick to make whatever point you want to make when you're in a discussion. That's the way it should unfold. I'm really excited about it. I wish well, the one good thing is if you're excited about any of this, there's, as we've emphasized, all sessions will be recorded, except the poster sessions, because we don't know who's going to be arriving when, so recording blanks don't make too much sense. There, the gallery is just like duck soup. That's like your, you know, for any paper, it's your dream come true. Because who wants to watch an hour and a half video when you can go and see, you can pick your own presentation. But if for those of you for a whole year, if those of you who've registered will be able to see any session you've heard about, any session that was concurrent with yours that you're agonizing that you missed, anything that you otherwise would want to see, or your time zones are a bummer. This meeting will be available for you for 12 months on a platform that only those who register can get into. So what else are we hearing? I wish someone would raise their hands and join. I hope what's a good time, as my mother would say, a good time was had by all.
Please, this is Biddu. We have one person raised hand. You want to?
Absolutely, do it.
This person named Chimoke Oladil, pardon me if I pronounce incorrectly. You are allowed to talk now.
Welcome.
Please unmute and talk.
Good evening. Good evening, please. If you can hear me.
No, we hear you. There's a little bit of background noise, but you're coming through. What time zone? You said good evening, so you're in a.
Yeah, I'm speaking from Nigeria.
Great. Welcome.
Yeah, it's about 9-10 minutes past 9 p.m. here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So ask your question. We'd love to hear what you'd like to know.
For now, I'm just following. I'm following, and I'm getting all as much as I can.
Okay.
I don't have other questions. Thank you.
All right. Well, if you have any questions, anybody here has any questions, I'm going to actually say you could, if it's related to an iPresentation, there's a dedicated box, which is presentation-gallery at aera.net, and which I noted before. If it's about an access question or issue or preference or need or requirement as a presenter or an attendee, access, just plain access at aera.net. If you wonder what I think about an issue, my email is F, like Felice, Levine, Levine, at aera.net. I will only forewarn you that every day I think about all of these issues, and I'm going to love to answer your questions, and I welcome hearing from any of you. I'm beginning to wonder whether my brain is frazzled at some time, but I'm going to do my due diligence and try to either answer sensibly or port you over to one of my colleagues who I know would try to. But don't hesitate. As odd as it may seem, we're an association of some 25,000 members, and we have very large annual meetings, but our own standard of who we are and what we want to be and become even better is a sense of creating an intimacy, a collective sense of trust and trustworthiness for our field, where each of you has an experience that is both collegially and substantively rewarding. So when we toss out these emails, you might think, or if I just said, raise your hand, oh, that's kind of pro forma. Actually, it isn't pro forma. I think we all feel better when collectively we are responding to who you are and where you are from wherever you sit. So we welcome you from Nigeria, and let's see, what other time zones do we have here? New Zealand, Singapore, Hong Kong, Japan. We've got a lot of Asian folks. We have a lot of global hemisphere. Of course, in Americas, we're on the same time zone, but we welcome every continent.
So please, this is Bidut again. We have another person who wants to ask a question.
Great.
Janet Banks, you are allowed to talk. Please unmute and talk. Ask question, please, if you want to.
Welcome.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for this informational session. I do have a question. I am the presenter for a group paper presentation, and my other two colleagues will actually, of course, be in the session, but I'll be doing the presentation. So if there is maybe an opportunity, if they would like to make a remark during the presentation, would I be able to bring them in? And then the second part of my question is we're in the process of working on our I presentation. Well, I'm going to be actually working on that, but we'll be inviting my colleagues to make revisions. And I know it was discussed in one of the previous sessions, but could you revamp that for me as well, how to invite additional authors to be able to make revisions or modifications to the I presentation?
Okay, so let me start with that one first. There's a screen within iPresentation where you can invite. Only one person can be doing it one person can be doing it at a time. But you all can be, another option is one person does it and share screen. But Robert will look for it now and be able to show you where you do that function with other authors. And so multiple authors can be in at the same time. Only one can drive the changes, but you can, it's kind of like us share screen. You'll be able to turn it over to someone else if they want to, instead of walking you through the change, if someone else wants to do it. So you have that functionality. I want to emphasize that if you run in, we do know that a lot of persons might be doing this work over this weekend. So if you have, if you don't find the help screens and the questions that we already have or that are in the iPresentation, what I call studio, your creation space, email presentation-gallery@aera.net. There are 4 of us who know the system really well, and we will be there to get back to you over the weekend if you're feeling a glitch. We don't want you to you shouldn't find this problematic, but if you've got a question along the way, we want you to have that support. Now, anyone, your first question, and then Robert will show you where that is. Your first question was also a very good one. If the persons are listed as presenting authors, and are they your co-authors?
Yes, they are.
If they are listed as presenting authors, they will come in, if I can just use let me just use the webinar type format. They will come in as presenting authors. They will be there just like you. And you won't have to, you just need to work out within the, let's say 8 to 10 minutes. That's Alex.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. No, they're not listed as presenting authors.
Okay.
They're just listed as authors. I apologize.
Okay, so let's assume for the moment they've registered, because any attendee has to register. If they
they are both registered.
Okay, so
you'll be able to promote them out of the audience to make a comment.
You will, but we're really asking Robert to have the chair start to do that. But you'll be, at least for your co-authors, you'll be able to do that as long as you stay within your limits. So you'll be able to, every person in a presenting mode can call upon others to speak, but don't start going into the Q&A function. We want the chair to do that. But if you just let the chair know that you will be calling upon your co-authors to not extend the time though, but that you've allocated some time to them. If you that's the best way to do it, and you have that capacity.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Robert, show that.
Sure. So on your iPresentation template, you have a number of different options. This one that says My Settings, just go ahead and click on that, and you can the first tab is Manage Co-authors. You can invite your co-authors to come into the system and edit this iPresentation. You and that individual cannot be in the platform at the same time, but you can invite as many folks as you'd like to come and edit your presentation.
Okay,
And
thank you.
and the another good option is if you're having like a team meeting, one of you drives it, go through whatever you conventionally would go through, WebEx, Zoom, Meetups, or whatever you use, and just share the screen. And who's ever driving it, you can all see it together. You know, if you've turned it over to a co-author to do a few things, but you want everybody to see it,
Right.
to contribute, just share screen and you can all be there at the same time.
Okay, great idea, because I would like for us to all be there at the same time. Thank you.
Just like we're doing now with sharing the screen.
Right, thank you.
Hey, thanks for joining. Where are you located?
Laurel, Maryland.
Ah, just down the block. Okay, well,
Yes.
welcome, Maryland.
Thank you.
Others?
Yes, Felice. Jumoke Oladil has come back. She wants to talk.
Okay.
Allowing. So Jumoke Oladil, please unmute and talk.
Yeah, thank you. Well done again. I just want to find out the possibility of adding authors, that were not initially added at the peer review stage of the paper submission stage for the peer review on the iPresentation platform. Would that be possible?
It was a little staticky, so I didn't hear the whole question. Can you just repeat it again? We're having some static and maybe between.
Okay. The question is, at the paper submission stage for the peer review,
Yes.
some authors have been listed. Now, if peradventure you want to add new authors on the iPresentation, will that be possible?
Yeah, new authors. Oh gosh.
Yes.
New authors. It's late in the game for new authors, but I will say, let's get this out of the annual meeting box. Let's just send, if you know them now, as soon as you get off, send them to, just send them to me, F. Levine at, put it in the box, Nathan, at aera.net. Specify the authors in order of authorship and who the presenting authors are and the non-presenting authors. That's the changes. So just do it like before you turn in for the evening, because that was the deadline that was, we're not sticklers, but that was the deadline that was March 25th. So if you do that, it should refresh on your interactive presentation, or we may have to force that for you. It won't refresh instantly, so we may have to make that change. If I think we'll, kind of make a little bit of an exception here by doing that. If it turned out it was next Wednesday and somebody who's also with us, of those who are still with us, if you have a change in your abstract, or what might have been an author that wasn't included at the submission stage, but someone, as the revisions have unfolded, merit authorship, you will be able to add that information. You can either have it as your opening panel, but I'm not sure I would encourage, I'm not sure I would encourage using one of your presentation panels for that, but you can add it to, should it be, Robert, to the reference page or the biography page? Which are the pages that appear at the bottom? And then that would be available to the viewers. Because I think
I think
the abstract is preset, so right, so
Right.
that can't be
so
added.
they could add it to the reference
Yeah,
page.
add it to the reference page where it's an open field and you can add anything. You can, if you could say, preferred update of authors, preferred update of abstract, and put it there, and then at least those who see your work during the meeting or later would at least know that your ultimate intent as this work proceeds is that it's, you know, it's evolved in this way. And that's why for the papers that go into the paper repository, we do entertain an additional upload. We're just trying to make sure everything syncs as much as possible so that attendees don't think you've given two papers with different authors and that what's in what's in the original submission or changed up through March 25th harmonizes with the platform program, the all academic program, and the interactive presentation. But very good question, and send that immediately, and be sure we know, including for yourself, even if you're repeating what was in the submission, exactly how the authorship should look now in terms of authorship and paren, whether it's a presenting or a non-presenting author, and we'll fix it up. Anybody else?
Thank you for.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Anything in written Q&A or?
If you have not done so, I would encourage you to register for the meeting. We don't want you to not be able to get in prior to the meeting and take a look and have an opportunity to experience what the platform looks like before you have to present.
Okay, well, we're just about on schedule. Could you mention the, okay, I'm seeing something. Could you mention, what is that? Nathan, are you in chat or where are we? Could you mention the guidance that will be coming for accessibility? I can. We've had various accessibility guidances posted, but we have had benefit of a specialist consultant who's with us today, Emily Biddix, who's worked on some terrific guidances, and we are finalizing each, and based on the timing for web posting, you know, I hope it will be up as soon as tomorrow. If we weren't doing so many of these collective meetings, we would be reading the final versions of a number of things that were uploaded, including those. Emily, you want to add anything?
Hi all. Yeah, we'll be providing them, but just so you can be thinking about it early on, basically, you'll want to make sure that all of your visual content, whether it's PowerPoint or iPoster, that you're thinking about developing that with accessible guidelines, large fonts, sans serif fonts, nice contrast. You'll want to think about planning in advance to audio describe your presentation so that a blind or low vision person or somebody who's just doing the dishes and has walked away from the screen has access to the content. So just thinking through the amount of time that that's going to take and building that into your presentation time, and thinking about not overdoing it with visuals, because all visual content should have that audio description. You'll want to think about making sure that the sort of way that as a chair you've structured the content is accessible. So that has to do with kind of slowing down the pace a little bit, being able at the start of a check-in, you know, having presenters say their names so that ASL interpreters can keep up with who's talking and provide that content. And also so that blind, low vision participants know who's talking. Just sort of, there's a number of tips like this. But if any of that is totally new to you, you know, the guidelines are going to have some resources where you can check them out and learn more. But also feel free to reach out to the access@aera.net where we're happy to provide any additional, you know, those can be sent to me and I can provide any additional coaching or support, because we really appreciate the work that you all will be doing to embrace this opportunity to make this conference more accessible, which will be an ongoing process as well. There'll be some learning this year and there'll be more growth next year.
So anything else that we see posted, or any final hands up? Okay, so I did want to say, just, I'm not sure how the visual, those who were viewing versus listening or reading, viewed it, but so I want to say it because I'm not sure what the impact is, but to all of you who are still with us, it has just struck me that I'm sure that Badut will give me some feedback on this, but I'm sitting in a location that I usually do not sit in, because we're migrating to where we want to broadcast, which is the which is in the ARA office. And so I'm sitting in front of a monitor that I've only actually used once before, and a camera that I've only used once before. And it just struck me, unfortunately, about 15 seconds ago, because Emily said something that stimulated that good thinking on my part, that this camera eye level is much higher than where I am when I'm in my living room. And so if it appeared that I was not, which I hope I am now doing, looking at all of you as if we are all together and as one, I regret that my eyes may have been down, and I surely want to convey and emphasize as we leave this session together how important it is that we are together as one, and that from a visual point of view would have been better eye contact, I suppose, with this new and wonderful camera that I'm otherwise very excited about, and that I'm really grateful and appreciative that you've been with us and you've asked really good questions, and we hope that that's been of help to you. I want to thank the ARA staff and Emily, Tony, Badut, Lori, Nathan, and we would just be diminished, I say, to Lisa and Nanette and Karbowski on many occasions, and we have many others who are working with us on live closed captioning and on ASL interpretation. We would not only be dramatically diminished in terms of who we are and what we are without your participation, not just in annual events, but in the work that we've been doing together now for some 14 months. And I've kind of said, as I suppose with a bit of humor, because they've been working as hard as we've been working on this. So what are we going to do on the, we could have said, what are we going to do on the 13th when the annual meeting's over? We're just going to have more of these sessions together. But if you haven't seen, we've got a wonderful professional development program with mini courses on the 13th through 16th. If you or your colleagues or students or mentors are interested in any of those, please sign up, and our team of ASL and live closed captioning will be available for those. So I suppose I might say we're going to have a party on the 19th to celebrate what we've done, and undoubtedly how we're going to continue with this special broadcasting and work that we're doing together throughout the year. So thanks all for coming, and in all of the time zones and in all of the places and spaces in which you find yourselves in still this awful pandemic. We hope that there's optimism and opportunities as we roll into the annual meeting, and as we continue through the year. And we know in many cities, many nations around the world, COVID is still too much with us. So thanks today, and we look forward to seeing you on the 8th.
Thank you.